All right, morning everyone. So today we have our former coach with us, Ian Armiger. He's got so much experience. He started off up north in Bradford with age group swimming club, and worked his way towards director of Loughborough Swimming from '97 to 2012. That was where we knew him and we met him. He was our coach leading into the 2012 games, so we've got a great relationship with him and obviously friends now. After 2012, he shot off to the Cayman Islands for some sun, stayed there for just over a year as director of Cayman Swimming, and now he's back and he's here to talk to us today. So he's got 40 years of experience that he can...
You make me sound old right there.
You don't look it.
No, that's good. He's
got loads of stuff that he can give us today. So welcome Ian, how are you?
Great to see you guys. Fantastic. I'm sure we're going to have a good session for the guys listening in and watching in. And yeah, we'll cover a lot of areas and hopefully you'll find some of that interesting. And as you well know, I get a bit excited. I'm very passionate about swimming and what we do. And let's see how we go.
Yeah. I see you got your fast swimming shirt on, ready to rock.
Yeah, always get immersed in it. That's what I say. So first thing in the morning.
That leads me into it then. So why swimming? Why was it swimming that got, of all the sports, of all the professions, why swimming?
What sports? What other sports are there? What a question. Yeah, well, it's quite unusual, really, because I think, obviously, I was a swimmer myself as a kid. And it's almost like swimming just came naturally, and I can't explain that. I mean, I don't want to go too much into the details, a boy with the details, but when I was a little kid, I lived in this village in Norfolk. You can't tell by this accent, can you? But I was in this little village, right? And the bus went to the town once a week, and there was all that stuff. And anyway, it sounds like one of those sketches on the comedy sketches, doesn't it? I lived in a paper bag, had a bag and everything else. Anyway, so I was about 5 or something, and we went on holiday to a seaside resort, and I saw the swimming pool, and basically I saw people swimming around in it across the widths, and I just jumped in. I mean, without any armbands or anything like that. Now, and then, and I basically swam across the width. And my parents had an absolute freak, but obviously I didn't have the techniques or any strokes. But I thought, well, that's what you do. You swim about. So how I can explain that? I can't, right? And so obviously there was something there that was like swimming was swimming. And then when we moved to the northeast, I kind of started swimming. I didn't really have any lessons or anything like that. I just went to the school and then started swimming, and then started racing people and everything else. And it kind of developed from that, And so I had that kind of something in there that drew me towards swimming. And when I graduated and I started teaching, like in a normal school, and but then I started coaching almost straight away. And I used to think to myself, and teaching, yeah, it probably wasn't my thing, because I couldn't really be myself. I felt I had to be this other person, and I wasn't comfortable with it, let's say. And I used to look at, say, occupations or people who were in the arts, like, I don't know, writers or artists or musicians, and I think, well, it must be great to just do something like that, which is your passion and it's your job as well. And then I'm thinking, and I was thinking of doing all these different jobs, blah 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 blah, and then I thought, well, swimming's my passion. It's what comes naturally. It's not a hassle. It's not a problem. It's what I do. Yeah, that's a career I'm gonna pursue. And because I had the passion for it, the excitement for it, I liked it. And because I was teaching, I thought, oh, yeah, well, coaching. And so almost immediately I stopped swimming, I went into coaching part-time. Well, it's never part-time, is it? It's like your dad, Joe, it's like you're full on with it. And so I was balancing 2 jobs, but I did that until I could get in a position where, so I moved, we'll cover this later, maybe from one club to the next, so I could be in a position to get a job as a full-time coach. And it's that working with young people and helping them develop, in all aspects of their life, really. But that's why swimming for me pressed a lot of my buttons and enabled me to kind of pursue a career that really I've never had a job in my life for the last 40 odd years. You know, you know, I've never done a day's work really in that sense, no matter how many hours you spend doing it, but it's just like a hobby really. So it was ideal. You know, for me, it was the right fit. I could get up every day, just be myself, just, you know, enjoy what I'm doing, as you well know. And, you know, okay, for sure you get challenges, but it was never, there was never any real hassles with it. It was just almost like a natural progression. And in terms of swimming per se, obviously it's an all-round sport. It's not seasonal. You're working, 48 weeks a year. You're working with committed, enthusiastic people like yourselves. You know, not everybody has to be, for me, you know, hugely talented or whatever that is, or really, really fast. But it's working with those committed people that want to be better, want to be engaged with it all. So that's really what drew me to swimming. Maybe, you know, I can't measure anything like this. If you talk about this inherent or natural, it wasn't inherent because my folks couldn't swim a stroke. You know, so it's like where it came from, I do not know. But it was just there, and it was always there right from the beginning. You know?
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, people always ask you what you're going to do when you grow up.
Yeah, they still ask me that. My mum used to say, "When are you going to get a proper job?" So like back in the day when you were coaching age group, they say, drop some kid off at school after the session in the morning, and they'd go, "What do you do for a job?" I said, "What do you mean?" And they go, "Well, what's your job?" And I said, "Swimming." They said, "Yeah, I know, but what's your proper job?" I said, "No, this is it. This is my job." Like they like very confused. It was like, what? Swimming.
Hopefully opinions have changed a little bit now.
Exactly.
So that was obviously the basis of why you're passionate about it, why you got into it, and you've been so many different places all around the world. I mean, you've even been to the Caribbean and everything with
time, yeah.
So, I mean, can you give us a little bit of background on, you know, your coaching career from starting up north after teaching?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a common characteristic going through all the different places that I've been in, we've always started from very small beginnings in very poor facilities and managed to build, you know, a really good team within each of those clubs. And it's, now I look back, I'm thinking it's almost like we get to a level or we get to do something and then I take another 10 steps back and then I go and do the same thing somewhere else. And that's a common thread in each of my moves. But people say to me, "Oh, it's easy for you. You're lucky, whatever that is. You're in the right place at the right time. You drop into these kind of roles, or things happen to you that anybody else would end up, you know, in the swamp doing that kind of thing or taking those risks." And people think that when they look from the outside, but really, a lot of it is quite planned. So I'm quite thorough, years in advance. So going through the teaching and the part-time coaching, that I did that for 10 years for pretty much very little remuneration. It was like almost voluntary, right? But it was all geared towards, so like 2 years in a club starting from nothing. Within 2 years we kind of had national age group medalists and that level of swimmer. Then I moved to another club in Sunderland, which was a better club, a bigger city program. We had international swimmers, youth internationals, European youth swimmers. Then I moved to Darlington, where we had senior internationals, like Martin Wilby, as you well know, came out of there when they were 18. The women's team would win the 4x100 women at the national championships. And eventually, after that amount of time, I got to a position where I could be a full-time coach. And in 82, I became a full-time coach, went to the Caribbean the first time to an island called Curacao, which is just off the coast of Venezuela, right down that end of the Caribbean. And it's Dutch speaking or Papiamento speaking with English as well. And again, we built from absolutely nothing, and we'll touch on this later, but from absolutely nothing You know, I quit my teaching job. I quit, blah, blah, blah. And Sylvia came with me. She quit her job. Right, we're going to the Caribbean. Off we go. So we had a good lifestyle in the UK, a nice house and everything, but we just like, let's do it. Off we go. So we go to the Caribbean. Quite naive, really, in a sense, but back in then, when you're in the early 20s or 30s or whatever, you don't really think. And took a risk, but built a great program there. And kids went to the well, on universality, but one of the guys went to the Olympics, and one of the guys actually went on to, that was in '84 in Los Angeles, so I was the coach of the team, but I got him a scholarship to the US, and in Seoul in 1988 he actually won the B final of the 100 free. Hilton Woods went to something like 50 points, but this kid, and I've got a lot of stories and I won't bore you with them, but this guy, he was in a club in Curacao that actually trained in the sea, okay, and I was looking through the results. And he trained in the sea, and he was 12. This is no exaggeration. And he was going 26-2 long course for the 50 free, 10.
Wow.
Right? It was like, well, my word. And he was I was nearly 6 foot tall then. So by the time he got to 15 or whatever, 14, 15, he was like 6'4" or whatever. So I took him to the Olympics in Los Angeles, and I didn't want them to look silly, you know, like not like Eric the Eel behind everybody. So I said, you've got to finish like 3/4 of the way down the thingy. And he went, I don't know, something like 53-2 or something for the 100 free. So he didn't look silly, you know. I mean, he wasn't going to be in the final or anything, but he was solid. And but then I came back from there, and I went to head up the city program in Bradford, and that was like a 4-lane, 25-meter pool. I had lots of pools in the city, but they were all not great. And again, we started from very small beginnings. One kid went to the nationals and swam the 200 fly before I went. But then there was a deliberate ploy to build that program. And Janine Belton was the youngest swimmer that went to the Olympics in '96. She was only 15. So she came out of there. We won the women's, there was some missing because it was Olympic year in '96. The nationals, we won the top women's club because we had this group of girls. And that, again, that was a deliberate kind of strategy on my behalf, because I thought I want to move on in my career and everything else, and that if I'm waiting for guys, I'm going to have to wait too long because it's an age group team. How can I do this? I can do it by concentrating on the females because they can be really fast at a young age. And so I used to separate off these young females, about 14, 15, 16-year-olds, 17, and I used to have them in separately and give them individual programs. It's like I used to do with you guys, spread it out like that. And they became very fast. There was about 6 of them on youth teams or British teams. And out of that, and off the back of that, then I got the job at Loughborough, really, because I had an Olympian, I had fast women, I had, you know, so I went to Loughborough to start the program there, and then we went back again to a 4-lane 25-yard pool, which was built in 1939. And I'm thinking, oh my word, here I go again. And Mike Perrabroon had done a really, really good job with the program. But Mike was a part-time coach. He was doing his MSc or his PhD or whatever it was. And so I was the first full-time coach. And we'll talk about that again later on. But it was the impetus to develop that program from very, very small beginnings. And then after the Olympics, as you well know, I think, well, I've been here a long time, myself and Ben Titley, should we do something different? And then I went to the Caribbean to be the technical director for swimming. So I went back from a powerhouse of pretty much British and world swimming to the Cayman Islands, down to here again, to this level with kids that, you know, had to start off again to try and get swimming going there. And it was a fantastic place, but it just didn't press my buttons. In terms of, I missed the performance environment too much. So after a year, I was back at Loughborough in a different role, but I was coaching morning and night again. And within that period of time, and I'm still there now doing coach mentoring, recruiting and admissions, some work for the business school. And so I'll probably always be there, really. But again, each of those teams had that common characteristic of building it, moving and starting again, building and moving. The kind of story of my life, really. I mean, I remember when I went to for the interview at Loughborough, that, you know, obviously Bradford had become this quite powerful team right there, particularly on the women's side, and and Loughborough was a good senior team, but not great, you know. But Mike did what he could within the resources, of course. But at the interview, one of the questions was, well, you know, you're not a spring chicken anymore. How are you going to cope with these students? What are you going to do? I said, mate, you know, this was a guy that was about 20 years older than me asking the questions. I'm saying, hey, you know, and he said, well, you won't be on any teams anymore because you won't have any international swimmers. I said, well, I'll start again. I'll do it again. We'll build it again. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, yeah, we'll fire it up again. And they were quite skeptical at the time, but obviously, you know, history proves itself that we did it. But it was, you know, it wasn't easy, and we'll talk about that later on. But yeah, that's the kind of the potted history of how my career's kind of gone, really.
History of Ian Armiger.
Yeah.
You'd said, obviously, like, you upped and left to Curacao with Sylvia, you know, after 10 years of teaching, and it was quite a risky move. How does Sylvia find it moving about, kind of, you know, all over the world?
Well, I was actually talking to somebody the other day about, you know, going back from that Loughborough interview, there was a couple of things there, really. But anyway, so off I go after the interview, and they said we'll be in touch or something. So I'm driving back, and I get back home, and I literally got in the door, and the phone went. And they said, oh, well, we'd like to offer you the job. And I'm like, right, yeah, that's great. I'm coming. And so I said to Sylvia, oh, and she had a really good job in like financial services and what have you. So she said, oh, that's great. You know, you got the job. Said, well, yeah. And then after a while, what's the salary? I said, I've no idea. I don't know. I mean, I figured it would be in a ballpark, you know. It's like, well, but I've just got to go there. I just need to be there. It's what, you know, it's where I need to be. And yeah, fine, okay. So it just goes with the flow, really.
Yeah, she's a flexible
lady. Great support. I have great support, you know, as you well know.
You said before that people say, "Oh, it's easy for you," and I always think that's a really dangerous mindset that people have, where they're just like, "Oh, it's easy for them because but they don't know like all that hard work you put in." And I think when they say that, we were talking about this with Liam the other day, people sort of make excuses before they've done something to excuse that kind of failure, like they make it a little bit easier for themselves. Liam was giving the example of someone saying, "Oh, I'm too short," or the parents saying, "Oh, they can only get so far because they're not very tall," that kind of thing in swimming. But that's the same sort of mindset, I think, with other coaches saying, "Oh, it's easy for you. You've got all the facilities. You've got this and that." But like you just explained, you didn't start in that. Any of your programs didn't start with good facilities. Obviously, Loughborough, we got fantastic facilities, but due to the strength of how well your program had developed in that, or was it 4 lanes Loughborough before? 4 lanes, 25?
4 lane, 25 yard.
25 yards, yeah. Good times. And I know, like, once you actually got the Loughborough pool built, you kept a memento of that old pool. you got your brick, didn't you, from the pool?
Yeah.
The original.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that was another funny thing about it, because one of the attractions was I knew they were going to get a pool, or there was plans to have a pool. Right. So I thought, oh, eventually I'm going to get a great facility, you know. And at the interview, I asked the question, you know, when they say, "Have you got any questions?" I said, "Yeah, pool." And they go, yeah, we're getting a pool. It's all singing and dancing. It's 50 meters. It's, you know, Oh, fantastic. Now, if I'd have been smart enough, I should have said, "Oh, show me where it's being built." Because in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh, I'll come here in May, and then a year down the road, I'll be moving into a great pool." Well, I didn't think of that question. Show me where it's being built. So, of course, when I rocked up in May, it was beautiful. It was, the blossom around campus. It was sunny. It was fantastic. There was sports going on. Well, of course, then I got to the pool, which was that 4 lane, 25 yard. And I'm thinking, well, I can manage in here for a few months. The reality was, it was never a done deal about the new pool, right? It was like 5 years down the road, we get the new pool. So for 5 years, we're in this thing. And when the pool was eventually built, look, the ladies in the office got me this. This was a brick from the old pool, the original pool of dreams.
Dreams. Very good.
They mounted it for me, and I got this present. But yeah, so we're involved with but that's where there's no excuses for the facility. The facility doesn't do it. It's the program that you put in place. Hey, again, it's not easy. It is not easy. It was really hard. And sometimes I think, how did we do that? Myself and Ben and Di and all the other backup people that were supportive of it. But we had some, we did a really good job in there. And we just had to put up with it. It's what you have. You've got to do it. And when I speak with the business guys, sometimes I use that analogy and say, look, we had this and we had to. It just had to be done. And it's no good, you guys, exactly what you're saying there, Joe, about some people are making excuses, or Liam said, that with the business folks, it's no good saying, well, I haven't got the latest iPhone, or I haven't got the best computer, or I haven't got I can't be successful within my team in business of managing my team because I haven't got the best technology. No, you've got to get out and do it. For sure, the best of things helps, but it's not, for me, it's not essential. It makes life easier and it helps, but you've got to get down to the basics of doing it. And the current hotshot young kid right now, and there's lots of examples around the world. And I know for some of the swimmers that you deal with on your fantastic Swim Swift elite camps and clinics, that they'll say, we've only got a 25-meter pool, or we've only got this. But if you look at people like hotshot backstroke girl Regan Smith, who is just incredible, world record holder, 15, moving on now, 16, 17, trains in a 25-yard pool most of the year. Yeah. Doesn't train long course, trains in a 25-yard pool most of the year, but gets in there and swims like that. Obviously, she gets exposed to some on camps, but it helps, but it isn't vital. It's more than that you put in place.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we both came from, you trained in a 33 and a third yard pool as a kid, I think, didn't you? And I was in, one of them was a 25-yard pool that I was in and stuff. And you do at the time kind of think, a nicer pool would be good. But at the end of the day, you put in the strokes in just the same as anyone in another sized or different quality pool. So it just the same as you lift in the same weight, it just might not be a really shiny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think as long as you get the exposure to long course racing, you start building your long course racing for your stroke counts and your rates, and you're hitting the walls at the right time, and your race protocols and strategies. You come off these little pools like that generally, and you start your first long course, and it's a little bit, and then your next long course, you remember and put things right, and then so it's more your racing, I think. The interesting thing for us is that, and myself and Ben used to talk about this when we moved from the old pool to the new pool. That I think a lot of the women were they didn't PB on things like the 50 free for about 2 to 3 years. Right. Their faster times were done training 25 yards. For speed development, and that's why we maintained that combination of short and long course training when we went to the new pool, because all long course we felt would flatten their speed. And say like Mel, Ros, Brett back in the day, all those guys, their best 50 times were done out of the old pool.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a load of science behind like why having the mixture of short and long course is beneficial, particularly for sprinters. Maybe, like you say, you don't want to deaden their speed. I'll be honest though, walking into Loughborough Pool when I first came to uni, it is inspirational. Like to have a pool like that, although at the start you think it's not always what you need. It's great, but you don't have to have it, but it is inspirational. It does add that extra little bit of, I really want to get to that pool and train today.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like you say, those things help, but they're not the essential. If you've not got them, you can't just use that as an excuse to not put that effort in or give you that excuse for failing before you start. So for 5 years at Loughborough, if you didn't have those facilities, how did you manage to develop such a strong team? What were your coaching sort of principles and thoughts that made you guys so successful?
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the sort of planning and like a vision for the program. And I mean, I actually wrote down a plan when I got there of what I'm going to do within, 4 weeks of being here, 3 months, 6 months, but 1 year, 2 years. So I actually had it written down because I like my patterns and plans. So I had things written down for the plan of how the program would go and what I wanted to do. And, I mean, not necessarily related to the swimming per se, and I'll get onto that. But one of the things was I'm the new guy here. I'm going to get to know as many people as possible on this campus for my networking in the different departments. And quite often my boss would say, how do you know them? How do you know them in aeronautical engineering? How do you know him? And I said, oh, well, because I just go out and I kind of introduce myself or have a coffee with them. And that meant that I could then ask them, oh, I've got swimmers in your class. Can you have you got any information on this? You're always learning. But right from the outset, and again, say Mike Perebrun did a fantastic job being a part-time coach and an academic as well, and now he's in Singapore doing a fine job. But the impression of people looking from outside was a bunch of students who did a bit of swimming, right? And I said, I'm going to change the image of the team. It's going to be swimmers who work hard, are committed and professional, and study also. And that was one of the real keys, and with a clear vision for the program, which I think Coach Andy and them, they already have that. So it's gone on all these years. All we want you to do is come here, swim as fast as possible, get a good degree, and enjoy being here. And that's all. And I wanted everybody to buy into that idea. And what we really did was just create this sort of belief and passion and excitement within the team, and a lot of fun. So there was this energy when we went to the meet. So there's lots of them, and there was all the rah people go, oh, here they are again. So they just used to get in and fire up. And I did learn a lot from them as well, because I hadn't worked with seniors of that age before that much, or at all. So it was a kind of a two-way process here. But we did create this image of a team that they would just ride the waves of success. It was like creating the norm. When you went to the British Championships, you swam fast, or you went to this meet, you swam fast. That's what you did. It was just like, well, of course we do, because we're here, we're rested and we're ready, and we have this enthusiasm, we have this almost belief, unwavering belief that, yeah, we swim fast, and people weren't expecting it. And that was the other thing. It's like, oh, well, here they come, bunch of Loughborough, And they say, well, what do you think they're like? They're not going to go crazy they're here. Because people used to say to me, oh, how do you manage them? They must be out on the town in Sheffield having beer. I said, what do you think? They're professional athletes, these guys. They want to do the business. And they're in bed at 9 o'clock. They're pretty boring. So we totally changed the image, and it was somewhere people wanted to come and be part of, because it was fun and it was exciting. And it was fine. Coupled with that, because we had limited facilities, we had to be very innovative with what we were doing. And Ben Titley is a good example. Coach Ben, some of the stuff that he came up with was incredible, fantastic. He brings in great things. Back in those days, I know now you think it's hard to believe, but back then, so now you're talking mid to late 90s, that nobody was doing land work as such as is now. There was no Olympic lifting, there was no med ball work going on, there was no circuits. We brought in all of that stuff. People used to ask us to demonstrate our med ball circuits. Nobody was doing it. Heart rate sets, nobody was doing that. There was a lot of sub-max swimming going on. But we had this thing called reverse periodization. We didn't know the name of it. Somebody told us that. This is what you're doing. We just experimented with this, like speed up. So if somebody's fast, you then build on the endurance, rather than in the old days, it was almost like normally they used to call this like speed through endurance. Speed through endurance. They would maybe write off people that were really fast on the 50. No, they just swim the 50. It's too late for them to do. They should have done the base work. Well, whereas we thought, no, they're fast. Let's build on the speed. And James Gibson's a classic example of that. At 18, he was like really, really fast. Breaststroke guy. Well, he wasn't really fast, but he could swim a fast 50, you know, he could swim fast. So then we played on that strength of his. And with the females, for example, nobody was doing Olympic lifting then. And I'm thinking, in those days, nobody was going sub 60 for the 100 fly, women. And I'm thinking, well, I can coach plenty of people that swim 59 for the 100 fly. And I know this sounds very simple, right? But what's the difference? Well, these guys happen to be male. And what's the difference then? They're more powerful. They, you know, all right. They do the same training. Like women are coming twice a day doing, you know, but they don't swim 59 for the 100 fly. You know, why is that? What am I missing here? So, you know, I talked to the track and field guys. I talked to the strength and conditioning guys, and I showed them like videos of the Olympic finalists or world finalists for the women's 100 fly. And I looked at and now again, it's not all by any means, but generally they look a certain way. And I said, I need the women on this team to look like that, you know, approximate to this. So that's when we brought in Olympic lifting, strength, power, speed work, complex training to develop speed and power. And everybody used to comment, and people came up, like Chris Nesbitt, who was from now in Australia, a fantastic coach. He came up to see what was going on, and everybody's going, "Oh, yeah, women are absolutely ripped. You know, how do you?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, right." And sure enough, we had like 3 that could go sub 60 for 100 fly within about 6 months, and nobody was going under 60, and they absolutely flew. You know, and I was like, "Whoa, my word, what's happening there?" So it started to be a discussion point with everybody else, and everybody else started bringing in these kind of things to our program. So to cut a long story short, we had a poor facility, but we maximized what was going on, and then we realized where our weaknesses were, and we were innovative. We were kind of, after each meet, we reflected on what was going off, how we could do things better, and people would look from the outside thinking, "Oh, they're doing great," and we were thinking, we need to be better than this. We need to move this on. We need to, you know, something like Therese Alzheimer at the time could have swum, Olympic medalist and world record holder, could have swum anywhere in the world, great pools in California, whatever you want, and decided to swim in Loughborough 25-yard pool because of the program that we had, and because of the atmosphere and the culture and all of those things, you know, so that's quite an interesting development, I think. So for the kids or coaches or the parents of the clubs that you're looking at, it can be done in a small facility. You just have to create that belief and energy within the program, and it's consistency, like every day, you know, believing that you can do it and not beating yourself down. It wasn't easy by any means. It wasn't easy. We used to have to split the group and have some days myself and Ben were spending like, we're doing 2 hours in the morning, that's 4. Then we're doing 2 and 2 at night. So we're doing 8 hours on deck, like 5 days, and then another. we're absolutely dead. And then, because he had the second group, if you want to call it, he had some fantastic swimmers. He then had to be very innovative with his land work, because say Gibson was only doing like 35,000 yards a week or 30,000, but he supplemented and complemented that with this really well-designed land program, you know. So you have to look at what you need for your program to achieve the results that you want to do.
Yeah, I remember when I joined the team, which is back in like 2003. So the new pool had just opened, but we were doing that reverse periodization, like you said. So we had you had like 1,500 swimmers in sprint sessions and like doing dive 15 meters. And to me, coming from everything I'd seen, I was like, well, this is bizarre. I don't get it, but it's absolutely fantastic. Obviously, people were going fast. So, yeah, at the time, I mean, now it probably seems a little bit more the norm to people that everybody does weight training, Olympic lifting and spit that. But back then, it did seem like completely like off the wall. But obviously, it was getting the results.
I mean, a couple of things on that one is that Coach Ben at that time went to do his ASA qualifications for his coaching certification, and he failed his land conditioning, right? He failed him on land conditioning. And I said, how can you possibly fail him on land conditioning? Look how fast these guys, look at them. And they go, but he's not he's not sticking to the textbook. I said, well, the textbook's out of date, man.
Yeah.
He's way ahead of that, you know.
Yeah.
But then he had to go, a bit like your driving test, then he had to go back and redo it, but go according to the protocols. And again, Joe, when you started up, and I use your analogy, and I'm not saying that you couldn't have been better doing it in a better way, but it's what we did and it's how it was, right? And you swam fantastic and achieved great results. But I often say to people that for yourself, you never swam the 200 fly work in training. You didn't swim sets of 200 fly. You swam a great 400 medley. You know, we're pretty much on world record short course to set a world record short course in the right circumstances. But you never swam straight 400 IMs. It was all looking at the components of the event and what you required to swim those events. And Amy had what we thought was necessary for her to swim the 50 and the 100 free, and what you needed to swim the 200 and 400. But, you know, you didn't need 100K of sub-max swimming. You needed the specificity for what you were trying to achieve for those events. Because, I could be wrong, but, you know, if I'm telling you to swim 80 to 90K a week, you'd probably get bored off your trolleys and say, this, you know, this is not what I'm about. I want to try some different things. Not that you wouldn't, if you thought it was necessary or if somebody really was passionate about it. But it's that sort of thing that we did try to put in place.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I was thinking as well, like one of the big things you touched on there for me was that raising of expectations. So I think, like, we see this with a lot of, we work with a lot of different clubs all around the world, really, and obviously through our own background as well. You sometimes see people just seem to get comfortable at a certain level. It's like you just said there with Benny, looking at the textbook. Well, this is what we do. This is the way we do it. This is the way we've always done it. Whereas what we were doing when I moved with you guys, it became a lot more enjoyable because the whole team seemed to just be geared. We've spoken about this on our own. The whole team just seemed to be geared with that one purpose, that one goal of swim fast. I remember when I came to Loughborough, you sort of sold me on the idea, like you said before, you can get swim fast, good degree, have a good time. And you said you can swim fast, study hard, or party hard. You can do 2 out of 3 well. So
yeah, yes,
pick the ones you want to do and then get back to me, kind of thing. And I really
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, for, like you've said, creating that team atmosphere, you've got to create an energy, and having that kind of holistic approach. You know, everyone's a little bit different, especially, you know, in a senior program like what you were building in Loughborough is really important. And you do come across loads of different personalities. And I'm sure you've come across people who you can see that they could do maybe more than what they believe they could do, whether it's talent or, you know, they've got the grit or whatever it is. But sometimes their head isn't quite where yours is at, with, you know, where you think you could take them. And like, we know you've come across people like that in the past. I mean, creating that atmosphere and getting the right fit between coach and athlete is, you know, really important to have that coach-athlete relationship. I mean, how important is that, do you think?
For me, that absolutely crucial. You know, I mean, what you do going up and down the pool and the sets and the different ways of going up and down the pool, that's the easy bit, okay? So in my opinion, you can do it in lots of different ways. There's many ways to do it, and there's lots of successful coaches that do it in all sorts of different ways. But if you don't have the relationship between you and the athlete and the trust and the belief in each other, then it's not going to work. It's absolutely the key to the whole thing for me. Coach-athlete relationship is vitally, vitally important, which then enables you to raise the expectations, because if you have that very good relationship with a person, then they will believe, you know, that you have this total belief in them. It's not a criticism. It's like, I really believe that, you know, you can be way better than you are. This is where we're going. And it's never a criticism. It's just a belief. And, you know, if the coach strongly believes it, you know, they will then respond, and you can lift them to the next level and the next level. It has to be realistic, and they have to be able to identify with it. So it's no good having the carrot too far from the donkey. You could do it in stages and build that confidence. So yeah, we've done that stepping stone. Now what about this one? Do you think we could do this? So it's no good saying, you know, I don't know, somebody like yourself, Amy, if you're swimming 62 for the 100 free, well, I'm going to get you to swimming 53 in a year's time, or you're going to go to the Olympics, because it's too far away from but then they see that, you know, once they get immersed within a team, that when they see people doing it, it's easier because they can identify that, yes, well, women do swim that fast, or, well, I might not swim 53, but I can swim 56 because anybody in this pool pretty much gets in and does that. So you soon internalize that, but the relationship with the coach is crucial. And in each of those programs that we mentioned before, that's what we took to the program, I think. And going back to Curacao, it was a small island at that time. It was isolated in the Caribbean. They had no idea what went off in the rest of the world. They did not know because there wasn't internet and there wasn't, you know. So what I used to do was feed them information about, I used to put US top 16 rankings, age group kids. This is what 12-year-old kids do. This is what they do. And all of a sudden, they started to think, oh, well, why am I swimming this slow? I can do this. I can do that. Honestly, within 2 years, within a year to 2 years, they were starting to swim those kind of times. And people were remarking within that area. And that wasn't necessarily the work that we're doing up and down the pool. It was more mindset and working on that. But you have to be consistent at it, and you have to be relentless of sending the message. And Eddie Jones with England Rugby, he would say he changed mindset, but only by reinforcing it every day. We're going to be one of the best teams in the world. You can do this. We can do this. You know, you ooze that kind of belief of where their performances can go. And I did the same in Loughborough, because I think the relays were always good because they had lots of seniors. I think on an individual, we had, like, say, one girl went to the British Championships, won a bronze medal in the 50 back, something like that. I used to publish things like the top 100 rankings in the world, be in the top 100, and I used to flag them up on the notice board. So and so, oh, well done, you're now ranked number 75 in the 2 fly, or whatever it is. Yeah. So they started to internalize world rankings. Then all of a sudden, the women's relay started moving up, and okay, it was a snapshot in a period of time. But I'd go, hey, look at this world rankings this month. Loughborough University is ahead of Canada. It's number 2 in the world on the women's 4x100. So they were kind of, you know, they got this kind of, the belief that the program is moving places. And so you were sowing those seeds all of the time. And when I went to Cayman, and you came there as well, and you saw what the swimming was like. And again, it's never a criticism of the guys, it's a belief. And I distinctly remember talking to the parents and the group, and I've used this with a couple of clubs in the past, said, look, because attendance was not their problem, they would swim 8 times a week, 9 times a week, 10 times a week. And I said to them, guys, attendance is not the problem. I do not know how you train as much and swim as slow. I just don't know how you do it. It's a physical impossibility. You know, how you actually go to the pool as much in a week and swim that slow. It's because the expectations were too low. You know, the expectations were too low because they over-rewarded mediocrity. So it's like, well, they had national teams and they were getting on national teams by swimming really slow. So I brought in qualifying times. Again, nothing ridiculous. And at first, people thought anything that I was putting down was ridiculous. But it wasn't. And it said, oh, well, they never swim that fast. That's ridiculous. They can't swim that fast. And I used to say, oh, we're only a small country. We're a small population, like a small club. We can't possibly swim that fast. I said, here, I'm not expecting you to swim like the fastest kid in the world at 12 in the US. I'm not. I'm just saying these are reasonable, normal kind of times that normal kids do. And I used to say, hey, think about school. Are you telling me when you send your kid to school, you expect them to be as good in maths as a kid in France at 12? You know, a normal school kid in France. Well, yeah. Well, why don't you expect them to be able to swim as good as a normal 12-year-old swimmer in France? Not the national champion, but a normal kid that finishes 10th or 8th in the final at the 12-year-old's 100 breast. You know, that's not impossible. And so they started to internalize this a little bit as well. And all of a sudden, they started to the bar was lifted and they started to raise their game, and they started, you know, if you just accept it, well, that's fine. Oh, we'll take you to, you know. And I had a massive bust up with the Olympic Federation out there because, you know, this universality thing. They said, oh, we're going to send somebody. I said, no. Oh, no, the Worlds it was. It was with FINA as well. And they said, oh, you've got to send somebody to the Worlds. I said, we're not sending anybody. What? Why not? Because they're not good enough. We'll send them when they can do the times. Oh, but you've got it because they want to see, oh, we've got 160 countries competing in the FINA World Championships, right? You know, the guys that swim in 2.5 minutes for the 100 free or something, because they like to see, oh, we've got somebody from Botswana already, and I'm not knocking Botswana, but so they bring in those kind of, because they like that. And I said, this is not a good for the swimmer, their development, and it's not good for Cayman swimming long-term development, because they're getting a chance to go to the Worlds. They think it's great. They get there. They'll end up in lane 8. They're 30 meters behind. They look ridiculous, and they get a very poor experience from it. So we're not doing it. And they then complained to the government, and it went on and on and on. Fortunately, the Federation did back me and supported me, and so we didn't send anybody. I got a letter from some big dude in FINA and saying, you know, and I said, it's not happening. So we stuck to our guns, and now the swimming there is very good. And we did, you know, exactly the same wherever I've been with some clubs I've worked with here, was putting in motivational times, you know, bronze, silver, and gold times, 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, whatever it's going to be. So each kid has their own Olympics and can achieve, but they're, you know, within reason and within achievable times, not ridiculous times. And I think we did talk about this on the last little clinic that we did with you, that I did with you guys, that, you know, we see some fantastic swimmers come there, little swimmers that could be way faster than they are, but they just don't. And I'm not knocking the coaches, because sometimes the coach education doesn't knock down as far as it could or should. And so it's unfortunate that they're maybe not getting the kind of work that they need to achieve those times. Or it might just be lifting mindset, lifting expectation, which is, you know, raising the bar at all the times. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a few things that I'd kind of pull out of what you've said there that I think are really important. And one is coach and athlete having a common goal. So, you know, if the athlete's goal is to do that, you kind of an agreed goal, if you like you say, a realistic one, but you need then, with that common goal in mind, that athlete to trust you as a coach and believe in what they're doing with you. And I think to have that coach-athlete relationship being really strong, especially when you were starting all these new innovative ideas at Loughborough, that had to be there, because if it wasn't, you know, they might just think, well, no one else is doing this. You know, why are we? I'm not sure about this. And they've got to trust you. They've got to believe you to actually go forwards with that, towards that common goal. And like you said, with the just creating that atmosphere, that energy, that vibe. Happy swimmers are fast swimmers, like you say, like Liam always says. And so, you know, if you've not quite got that coach-athlete relationship there, if you as a coach aren't sure what makes that individual tick, you may not be quite getting everything out of them, because they're not maybe just even enjoying it as much as they could do. So, yeah, there's loads of different things in there, but those are the three big ones I kind of pulled out.
Yeah, I remember you having a few intelligent chats with me around a lot of that stuff, and around like where I was looking. And it's like you said, sort of during that last talk, that you can see probably further than some of your athletes. You can see the potential in them that they maybe aren't aware of themselves. And yeah, I'm obviously going to watch his language on here, but you weren't afraid to tell me when things weren't good enough. Like that's not right. Yeah. That's you know, pull your finger. That was because of the belief that I had of how fast you could go, where you could go, and yeah, you remember that one at the Worlds. I could have been in there. Well, yeah, there's no answer to that. Well, you weren't even in the race. But yeah, you could have been. But you know, so that yes, those sort of things. But I think it's consistency as well. I mean, I believe it's consistency as well. It's relentless pursuit. You can't take your foot off the gas. Have to be pursuing this relentlessly, and you only build this trust by
in my opinion, having that consistency of approach, day in, day out, session in, session out, and not sitting back, not coasting it, not relaxing it, doing the work, and from both sides, and from the coach, because you might, well, I'm doing all of this and he's telling me to do this, or helping me do this, and he, he's off on the golf course or something. Now I know that, this is just my way, and there's lots of ways to do it. Other people say, oh, well-being of the coach and everything else, but I never had a problem with that. I'd rather be at the pool. but it is that consistency and drive and belief. Bill Streeton used to say that the experience and knowledge of the coach needs to be ahead of that of the athlete, so you know where you're going, like driving the bus, and you know which route you're going on or where you're going. Not to say that there shouldn't be input from the athlete, of course, but generally the coach is driving it and leading it, and it's about the athlete. It's that athlete centered, as they say, and you're putting things in place and everything else. And of course, you can have the discussions as they get older, but at the end of it, you have that vision that they might not have, or that belief that they might not have, and it's recognizing, the individual differences within the athlete, and learning which buttons are the right buttons to press, and who needs a kick of the pants and who needs an arm around the shoulder, and at what point, because somebody needs a kick of the pants one time might need an arm around the shoulder another time, and you don't get it right all the time. You make mistakes for sure. But you just have to learn with it and try your best. But the key is the relationship that you have with the athlete.
So, like, over time, obviously, like you said, things are going to change over time. You're going to develop and adapt your ideas as you go along. How much have you had to change the sort of way you would either run the sessions in the pool, like the nuts and bolts, the lengths you're doing, and maybe the way you approach those individual relationships with the athletes? Like, did you set off just being like, no, this is the way we're going to do it, or did you change over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's very much about professional development. I know it sounds cliched, but I was talking about this the other day with Emma Collins, like guys at Mount Kelly, in that right from the beginning, and Martin Wilby, who obviously you know well, and I used to coach back in the day when I was at Darlington. He was only 18 years old, and he mentioned something the other day that when he was swimming, he said, "You're the only guy that I know takes his holidays and goes to Florida, gets a car and goes to all the swimming programs in Florida for his holidays, and spends 2 days here and ends up at the University of Florida in Gainesville, spends time there." And I was always kind of seeking out, I'd like to go and see, I've looked at this already, even now, of where Regan Smith, where somebody else trains all these hotshot young US kids, but unfortunately they're spread out in all different places, so that it's difficult because you'd be flying from one to the other. You wouldn't be able to go a nice smooth journey, say like up the coast of Florida or California. And in 2004, when I was in Athens for the Olympics, at that meet, the men's 4x100 relay, the South African relay absolutely flew. They smashed the world record. They blew the Americans out of the pool. And people were like, my word, what's going on here? And I'm thinking, what's going on here? And I really was into kind of sprint swimming at that point, freestyle. I was looking at new ways and new things to do, develop the athletes. And I thought, I wonder where they swim. And I looked at it, and the majority of the team were at the University of Arizona at that time under Frank Bush. So I didn't know Frank Bush from Adam, basically. Anyway, I sent him a message and said, Frank, I'm Ian, is it, I think I talked to him at the meet. Is there any chance I could come to visit your program? He said, yeah, no problem. So I got a flight, I got a car, I booked an hotel, paid for by myself because I wanted to do it, right? I had to do that. And I was lucky but I would spend my money doing that. And I spent a week there, and I went morning, afternoon, all the workouts, watching these guys, talking to the coaches, finding out what I thought. Of course, they're talented individuals and they might be special, but is there something that I can take back? And I got some ideas, and I went back to Dr. Henrik Nakome, who was head of sports science and medicine at the time, and a well-respected academic in sprint exercise, and talked to him And I said, look, Henrik, I've seen this and I'm not sure what's going on in this kind of work. And he said, well, you're doing something similar. You're doing speed development, but what they're doing is power development. And I said, oh, okay. So he said, if you do, so then I adjusted my program to have like a power development phase and a speed development phase in the pool and on land. And, but going back to your point, Amy and Joe, about taking the swimmers with you, I would come back and I'd say, look, guys, I've seen this. I think this would work. Henrik's given us some information. I think if we incorporate this, we can get a little bit more of a tweak on the program. And again, it's not change for change sake, but at the beginning of each cycle, I'd think, I went to, where did I go? Somewhere else to watch some swimming. And they were doing a lot of kick sets. And at that time, I wasn't really into kick sets. I wasn't doing much of kick sets. And I saw them doing these kick sets, and I talked about it, and I thought, so we'll experiment. I said, guys, last year, I don't think we did enough kick. I'm going to put these sets in. And they responded to that and did real well. Some people who couldn't do it at all, I just said, hey, we're flogging a dead horse here. You better do something different than doing this. Put the fins on. But you keep the fins on. But Amy, but other people that
got better.
Yeah, but other people that could do it within, you would incorporate that. So they knew there was a change for the sake of it. And I think, again, Amy, going back to yourself and going back to some other sprint women that I had, and you were a good workout swimmer. And again, sprint people, you can have variations as you can in any strokes that train in different ways. And sometimes the sprint guys are not wanting to crank out, I don't know, 10 200s freestyle or something, or threshold sets. Now, again, people have different models, but my model is to have a bit of that. And I'm saying, oh, well, Amy's 21 years old. She's got enough aerobic endurance to swim around the world. What she needs to be is strong, powerful, and be able to move fast. She only swims for 50 odd seconds. And some of that's pushing off and diving in. So therefore, she doesn't need, 60K of sub-max swimming. She needs to be powerful and strong. But my thinking would be, you need a little bit of that to keep it topped up. And if I explain, Amy, I know you're not going to like this, but believe me, it's good for you. No, I don't. Yeah. But that old phrase. But I really think that you need a bit of this. Generally, the guys will do that. Say, I know you don't like it, but I really think that you need some of that. But it's not every day. I'm only going to do this once a week because I think you need this. The other time, we will do this. Now, for the sprint guys, and I'm going back to James Gibson's days, and as you're very friendly with Liam, as you well know, that people say, oh yeah, and it's not that they don't do a lot of work. They spend a lot of time trying to swim that fast. They don't try a lot of meters trying to swim that fast, but they spend a lot of time trying to swim that fast. As Usain Bolt will spend a lot of time trying to run 9.5 for the 100 meters. He wouldn't spend 10 400s on the track. He wouldn't spend a lot of distance, but he'd spend a lot of time trying to swim that run that fast, as you would for your sprinting. And what Joe needs for 2 fly or 4 IM, hopefully he would get that. So it is being innovative in what you're doing, and trying to bring in things that are specific to the person. Of course, with the little kids in the clubs, they do general work, but they can then adjust the session as well. So if you've got I remember going to seeing a coach, and he had a new kid who was very good at sprinting, right? And he was giving them this set, and he said, oh, this is no good for her. She can't do this. And I'm thinking, well, why are you giving it to her then? Because it's a waste of half an hour right here, because the set was half an hour long. I said, well, why is she doing it? Oh, well, yeah, everybody's doing it. I said, well, why don't you have her do the set, but do it, stick some fins on and go, I don't know, it was hundreds. 75 control, last fast 25, breathing twice at this stroke rate. All right. And she can go off the same turnarounds. She could do the same thing. She could do the same set. It's easy for your organizational qualities, but I never thought of that. I'm like, okay. Then. So she feels better. He feels better. It's more beneficial. So it's looking at the person. It's going back to that thing, which is very key to my kind of philosophy about coaching the person and looking at what's the requirements and the components of the event,
Yeah.
building the jigsaw for performance of putting all these buttons together. And Joe, I wish I could have done some of your backstroke, and everybody, the best people in the world tried, but they could never fix it me. I have nightmares about it, and so do you, I know.
That's true. What I was going to ask, based off the back of that, it made me think, because like going out and visiting Arizona, visiting all these programs, building that coach network, all sounds like fantastic stuff. But are you ever in danger of confusing yourself? So I sometimes think for coaches and athletes that are trying to choose a new program, maybe they're looking at these different programs, and like we said, there's all different ways and means, not just one way to get fat, many different ways. So if you've got your coaching philosophies, is there an idea of maybe just putting the blinkers on, ignoring outside influences, and just sticking to this? Or should you always be open to new ideas, but are you going to confuse yourself a little bit there? Like, how do you get that balance right? Yeah,
I think when you first start out as a coach, you end up looking at lots of things and you get more confused as you go along.
Yeah.
You think you get bombarded with stuff and thoughts, and you're not sure of what your model and your style is. And eventually you will figure that out. It's then that you start making little tweaks. And, you know, going back to that Arizona story, it was like, well, I want to go for a specific reason. I want to see something that I can resonate with, and I needed a reason of why that was something that I thought about, but I needed to have confirmation of what that was doing. Why was it just that they were fast anyway, or was it to do with this development? And so then I would consult maybe an expert in the field. Now, not everybody has to go off to Arizona or wherever it's going to be. They could go to programs in this country and go and see. And with the younger coaches, I say that don't just go to conferences, because coaches will put stuff up there and it'll sound fantastic and it's the ideal. But the reality is that's not what's going off in their own programs. You need to go and stand there and see what's going on to learn and take things away from it. You don't chuck everything you do, because obviously you're doing some good things and young coaches are doing some great things. You've got to have your own mindset as well. But there might be something that resonates with you. And it might not be just in swimming. It could be within other sports. Because going back to the, back to the old pool, I used to share an office with the coaches were together. And I used to sit next to Dave Redden, who was head of sports science at the London Olympics. He was ahead of the whole thing, sports science and medicine at the Olympics. And Dave then went to work with the FA and so on. He was a young MSc person, incredible intellect, but very, very good. And I said, Dave, I used to sit next to him, and he was on another planet in terms of scientific knowledge to me. But I said, Dave, can you tell me about this? Can you tell me about what do you think of this? Or the track and field coach, what do you think about this? How should I develop? What are you thinking? So I would always take on board these kind of ideas, but then I think you have got to have a filter to say, all right, I'm not going to do all this now because I've seen somebody else do it. Well, you've got to incorporate, because the swimmers will go, oh, he's been on another course, or he's been on a visit. He's going to change the lot. And then you suddenly change everything. Whereas if you come with a reason, and then they'll think, yeah, let's try a bit of this. And don't be frightened at the end of it to say, that was rubbish. It didn't work. We're not doing that anymore. It didn't work. We're going to go back to doing this because we think that this works. And we were challenged a lot of the time. So it had to be very, not to say that we knew everything, because we never did. But people used to challenge us all the time. Say, that's no good. That Loughborough program, they don't do 70K a week. They don't do 80K a week. It's not right. It's no good. And like, well, hey, it might not be any good, but they beat yours. So, that love and kindness, that's rubbish. Yeah, well, that might not be, but they beat yours. Maybe you should try some. But we used to get that all the time. It was in the national press at one point. The corridors of Loughborough Sport are rock with a voice of so-and-so giving them chip for this and that. James Gibson, he's useless. He always falls at the back end of the 100 breaststroke. What happened when he got 70K a week? You flattened his speed and he couldn't even sprint very fast. So he fell at the front end of the front breast, never mind the back end. He was way behind, so it didn't matter whether he fell out. it is being sort of sticking to your principles really and coming up with, and eventually the young coaches will formulate those ideas, I think, within their model and their style.
Yeah, definitely. It just takes a bit of time, doesn't it, to kind of realise what works for you and your swimmers at the time as well.
When you know, going back to that thing of when Wilby said, "Oh, you went on your holidays to Florida," and I remember I was quite naive, and I went then, and I was very inexperienced, and I went to these programs, and I went to, I'll not say the name of it, but I went to this one program, right? They had a fantastic pool. If I died and got to heaven, man, that's where my job would be. It was on the ocean was like over the ocean was up that side of the road with a beautiful beach. It was outdoors. It was 10 lane 50. It was, and I had another one, 50 meters. It was 2 10 lane 50s or something. And I went there, and there was all these little kids, and there was a age group program. All these kids piled in, and they were swimming widths, 25 yards, because it was 25 yards across. There was 16 lanes, 25 yards in the pool. There was X number of coaches on the deck, and it was all these little kids, right? And I'm thinking, it's absolute chaos. I'm thinking, and then I was saying, oh, how fast is that kid? And they were telling me these times that these kids were doing, and I'm like, what? How? And I'm thinking, and you know, okay, I was very young, and I'm thinking, I'm better than these guys. I can do a better, you know, I can coach better than these guys. It was absolute chaos. But the kids were really fast, and that's what got me thinking about this culture and mindset thing. Because in the US, it was like, well, it was almost, to my mind, it was easy to get them to swim fast because the whole culture was like that. Because it was in this environment of you had to go fast to survive, because this was the norm. This is what kids did. They went that fast. So I came back with this idea that, well, it's just this expectation. It's belief. You just, as long as you do something half decent in the pool, you have this culture where, yes, they can do, you know, they can swim these speeds. And my philosophy pretty much changed right then, you know, like, this is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm going to have this mindset thing. I'm going to concentrate on this and believe that it was a kind of a light bulb moment for me, really. It wasn't what they were doing, because I wouldn't be taking that from the program, but it was how fast they were going. It's like, what? It was really eye-opening, to be honest, back then.
That's brilliant. That's really, really good. That's how I felt when I came to Loughborough, that like I was just completely out of my depth. And that survival you just mentioned there, I had to go fast to survive. So I was just trying to keep up with the squad, and just by doing that, in that environment, everybody was trying to go quick. It made me go a lot faster. By like 1-2 years into the program, my times had dropped loads, and I didn't really feel like I had done anything other than just try to keep up. It was really, really, really good.
I mean, like you've said, you've been all over the world coaching, lots of different places. I mean, how do they differ? Have you got a favourite place, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all different. We've been all over the place, and I was just talking about this with Sylvia before, that, and it's not so much because all of those places, it's more the experiences you have when you're there and the people that you meet. I know that sounds a little bit corny or cliche, but it is true, you know. And of course the environment helps, and each of those places have been really, really good experiences and really good places to be. And you know, I wouldn't say I could live almost anywhere, but as long as I had, you know, swimming in that, but of course it's nice, and Cayman was beautiful, and it's sunny, and the lifestyle, but obviously, and the people were fantastic. And, you know, pretty much paradise, right? But the swimming wasn't right for me. Everything else, every other button was pressed. It was nice. Curacao at my stage of life was fantastic as well. It was the Caribbean. It was the people. It was, you know, so there's lots and lots of different places. My ambition for quite some time was to work in the US, to live in the US. And again, I know there's a massive difference between the places. I didn't want to end up in the boonies somewhere in, you know, that, and I know that, right? Or really industrial towns, I know that. But in my mind, it was like easier to produce fast swimmers. And that was what my aim was, because of that thing we just said before, that it's almost like success and how fast they go is part of the culture and the belief that they have. And I wanted to coach there several times. and had the opportunity a couple of times, but it just wasn't right, didn't fit with my stage of development right then, that I kind of turned those opportunities down. And in hindsight, it was the right decision at the time, and it was probably the right decision long term. So, and I'm not answering your question really, but I'm kind of saying there are lots of great places in the world to live and work, as long as you're passionate and enjoy what you're doing, and the experiences are fantastic. But obviously, Loughborough is, I know you compare it with Caribbean, but Loughborough is, for me, like the fit with me, senior swimming, that performance environment. And I'm probably, again, about, it's not necessarily working with all big hitters. I like to see this development and bring people through from the small beginnings to be like the programs. I like to do that. I like to see that, of how fast that's the satisfaction I get. And I like to see people being successful afterwards, and, you know, keeping in touch with them and doing great things, because I'm totally oblivious. Only recently, and that's honest, only recently have I come to terms or been aware of the impact or the impression that I've had on those people. I had no idea. It's like, you know, going back to Cayman when I left, I got these letters that were incredible. And I'm thinking, well, I've hardly had any contact with them, you know. And like these people now, that, you know, 10 years down the road, they're writing, you've no idea what, and I hadn't, you know. I'm like, it almost brings a tear to my eye. I was like, what? And only now am I realizing that kind of relationship that were built in the program. So Loughborough, to me, it's almost like purple runs through here, and it's never about the money. It was about doing the job. And a couple of things, like a young coach said to me the other day, with all this uncertainty we have right now and the challenging times, that he amongst his friends that are not coaches, the others are not coaches, they find it weird that he wants to get back to work. They don't want to get back to work, but he really wants to get back to work because he's invested in what he does. I can't wait to get back on the deck. I can't wait to get coaching. I can't wait to do that, you know. And again, the you know, it's not about the money, and I've been well looked after. I no qualms about that. You know, they've looked after me well. But if somebody said to me, I'll give you £1 million if you don't set foot in Loughborough Pool or Loughborough University ever again, I'll say no. I can't do that. I have to, you know, you might say you've got a problem. but it you know, that is the fit for me. You know, it presses all my buttons really, because senior swimming, the senior environment, and again, they don't have to be all world-class swimmers. I like to take people to their first nationals or their first Olympic trials or a qualifying time or their B final or whatever it's going to be. That's what I like. And then I like afterwards to see where they go in life and how they do things. Yeah, it's like I'm the dad. The proud dad. Oh yeah, they've done great. They've done great. And I'll do anything to help them achieve those things, albeit anything. You know, we talk about a holistic approach. Anything that I can help them with in any way, I'll try to do it if I can. And you know, that's basically me, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly wasn't difficult to round up loads of people for your leaving do before you
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everyone was totally in for that from years and years back, from all over the place as well.
You see, that was an example. It was like, that was an example, and I know you were instrumental in that and you did all of that, right? But like, it was absolutely, I mean, I don't think it's ever been done before or since, or ever, something of that degree. And some things that kind of like little nudges, you know, things that happen. It's like, when you won't remember him, but going back, Professor Sir David Wallace, who was the Vice Chancellor, who was very instrumental in, you know, all the facilities and the development and the pool. I mean, I remember I sent him a message once because we were quite friendly, if you want to say, but I mean, he was the boss of extraordinary proportions, and he was like, whatever he was, president or secretary of the Royal Society for Science, so he's another planet intellectually than me. But we got on real well, you know, and I came back from somewhere once, or an article, I said, David, the football coach at the University of Florida earns 10 times more than the president of the United States. And he said back, Ian, very nice, don't get any bright ideas. I said, oh, thanks a lot. but so, you know, but for him, they asked me to do a citation he's leaving to, you know, because the vice chancellors have a period of time when they have to do it. And I'm like, hang on, you know, I'm the blooming swim coach here. And you're asking me, with all these academics and all these massive hitters on campus, you're asking me to say something about David Wallace leaving the university. I'm like, this kid from Newcastle that happens to swim, all of a sudden, you know, you're doing this. And I'm like, well, how did that happen? You know, and these things that have happened to me all along the line, I'm thinking, oh, we're going to award you the university medal for great service to the university. I'm like, what? All I do is get up every day and enjoy myself and get guys going up and down a pool as fast as possible. You know,
well, it's like you were saying, like coaches they've got a really important role. Like more like you said before, coaches think it's just about setting some sets and kids go up and down and swim fast. Where that's not really the job. That's a small part of what your job actually is, and that holistic approach and basically boiling all the way down, simplifying it. Happy swimmers are fast swimmers, and like you said, you do whatever it takes to get happy swimmers, and that's a lot more complicated than it can sound. So yeah, I think everybody like we've ever worked with, like we just said there, Living Do, guys you're doing citations for, they all know what you do for that, and that's what's made these programs you've worked in be so successful.
I don't know, it's great. I mean, we've had a great chat, you know, so we've gone a long time, but, you know, I told you I get excited and talk a lot, but you knew that when you said, you know, like...
Well, yeah, we know you could talk swimming all day, and like there's so many messages in there for swimmers, parents, coaches, absolutely everybody. So I think we'll probably get you back on it some other time because there's lots.
Oh, great. Hey, guys, keep doing what you're doing. It's fantastic. And then, you know, now and then do bits for you with the clinic with your kids and that, and your swim lead stuff. It's great. And, you know, you are building a good reputation for the service that you deliver. You put great things in place for the guys. You're not overcharging for it. You're wanting to deliver a good service. You know, you're interested in the kids. You're passionate about giving back to the sport. And that's, you know, and that's fantastic. And I think that, and I'm more than happy to support and promote, you know, in any way I can. And again, you know, we're talking now that you guys are in your 30s now, where you're getting older. But yeah, so Amy Smith. But you know, we meet up socially now. You know, we have a close relationship. You've been to our place. You've been to our place in France. You know, and you don't forge as close a relationship with everybody by any means, but you do have a relationship with lots of people, and you'll help them if people phone out of the blue or send a message out of the blue. I'm all too happy to help people because they're attached to the program. So it's great, you know. It's really good to see.
Well, thanks.
Hey, I'm even in touch with your dad, Joe, helping him with his coaching and his sets.
Coach Pete, right, yeah. Well, thanks for the compliments, mate. We got some inspiration from the best. That's why we like to do what we do.
Great, guys.
Yeah, well, thanks, Ian.
Well, thanks a lot, guys.
See you soon.
Thanks very much. Catch you later. Bye.